You're listening to the Perth Property Show, Australia's only weekly property podcast by West Australian experts for West Australian listeners. Catch your latest episode every Monday at 7 a.m.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Perth Property Show. My name's Trent Fleskens, your host. As always, this week we're on another Suburb Spotlight. We've got a man who's been in the room before. It was great chat last time, and he represents part of Perth that we haven't spoken about for a little while, Queen's Park, Cannington, East Cannington area. It's Tom Miszczak from the agency. This guy's a fantastic fella, really passionate about property, and is a number one in his area for a reason, and that's why we have him on the podcast. Tommy, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
What's going on in your neck of the woods? We've had conversations with a number of top agents in Perth. We'll probably wrap it up over the next few weeks, I think, in terms of chasing number one agents and getting their feedback, because I guess at some point in time the survey starts to become pretty obvious where things are going for the listenership. But your experience, your anecdotes are important to me to form that worldview. What's happening in Queen's Park and East Cannington?
Still seeing very strong interest in the area. I think every suburb in Perth and in WA has seen an adjustment over the last 8 weeks. Biggest difference is our investor market has tailed off with the uncertainty that's been created by the budget announcements. I think, again, this is a consistent path and a consistent conversation that we're having throughout the whole state. Numerous agents, we're all having the same sort of discussion points, but internally within the Queen's Park, Cannington area, we're still seeing really good growth.
Does that mean that investor demand is being replaced by first homeowner and second homeowner demand, and it's doing what the government wants to do in terms of getting investors out of the way of those people that haven't been able to get into the home they want to?
I think it's not more in terms of more first home buyers or owner-occupiers coming to the market, but we're not having to see these first home buyers compete with the investors.
So less competition, does that mean lower prices? Does that mean less growth?
Not yet. So the pricing hasn't dropped significantly yet because we're still holding on to the prices that we were getting 3 to 4 months ago.
Is that just that confluence between seller expectation and there's still a level of competition between owner-occupiers that they're still achieving what they want to?
The key at the moment we're seeing with the owner-occupiers is the presentation. If we're presenting the properties correctly, marketing them at a price point that's still attractive, we're still getting multiple offers, which is still seeing those prices hold. Now, if we don't have that investor competition in 6 months' time, that might be a different conversation.
We've had a conversation with Derek Baston, who is the top agent, your equivalent in Vic Park, East Park area, and he made a good point that the wealth gap or the price point gaps are probably going to widen, in that he believes in his area he's going to see sideways growth, some growth as a median, but that would come from material growth on the upside, well presented, good owner-occupied homes, and then balanced off by possibly negative growth on the poorer quality stuff that currently was just passing through at FOMO levels up until recently. And there you get your median going sideways / a little bit up. Is that what you're suggesting for your area too?
I'd agree, and I'd probably put it as bluntly as this was the bust or the slowdown that we needed to have in Western Australia.
Why?
The reason being, let me bring my stats up, because the last time I was sitting in this seat, it was in September 2024. Our median was 615,000. And I'm going to talk numbers rather than percentages, because I think that hits the hip pocket a lot more. And listeners that are looking to buy, that will be the much more relative thing. Now, the current median for Queen's Park, as an example, is 850,000.
So in a year and a half, we've gone from 615 to 850.
38% growth, $235,000 in growth. Now, that's not sustainable growth. So I'm going to go even further than that and say this slowdown is a very good thing for us. And this means that we're going to see a much more stable path. And instead of seeing this boom or bust mentality that Perth and Western Australia has had over the last 20 years, we've had 3 busts effectively in that period, where we've dropped anywhere between 12 and 26% as a percentage. I think having this sort of slowdown will give us a much more staggered growth or staggered slowdown.
I understand what you're saying. It's just more sustainable in that sense, in that it starts to separate the wheat from the chaff, and it requires old product to actually get upgraded and renovated before it comes to market, rather than just pushing it through. But at the same time, it probably solves a problem that we've been identifying on the podcast for a lot of the first half of this year, in that prices were still growing despite the fact that there was a thinning of the herd in terms of the number of offers and people at the table. But the reason that there was a thinning of herd was not because there was less people demanding property, because there was less and less people who could actually afford to demand that property, if that makes sense. So eventually you get to a point where it's just no one left who can afford to pay for that house in Queen's Park, who would want to live in Queen's Park, is what you're saying.
Basically, yeah.
But for good quality product, for development product, I guess, properties that have a reason to want to be there or own that, you're saying there really hasn't been a lot of effect in that owner-occupied space because negative gearing and capital gains don't affect them anyway?
Absolutely not. So in the last 4 weeks, we've sold 3 development sites ranging anywhere between $1.9 and $2.7 million. There's a lot of uncertainty there, but if somebody's spending those amounts and multiple buyers are spending those sorts of amounts, there's obviously still a level of certainty from a developer aspect. Obviously, they're going to be affected less by these changes, or they're not going to be affected at all by these changes because they're going to pay CGT anyway under their company structures. So from that perspective, we're still seeing some confidence in the market. The owner-occupier properties are still there. We're seeing the owner-occupiers who are looking at buying investment properties, now that they might not make as much on those investment properties, or perceptively might not make enough from those investment properties or make less, now reinvest that money into their owner-occupier property. Where it's tax-free. So they can now upgrade their own home. They might sell their $1 million home, $900,000 home, and go buy a $1.5 million home.
That would be more of an investment for them in regards to the net outcome rather than having the family home and an investment property, inverted commas. Yeah.
Exactly. And you get to enjoy it every day.
Tell me about, if we can step back for a second, what the raising of the train line's done to your part of the woods.
Yeah, so that's another big plus point. So we used to call the railway line the Great Wall of Cannington. It used to separate Cannington from Queen's Park and East Cannington. They've really activated that space. So we've got dog parks, we've got basketball courts, we've got playgrounds, we've got BMX track, skate parks. And I guess the fear or the unknown was how well utilised that would be. And we've really seen that utilised probably more than expected. Every evening you go down there, you drive past at 5, 6 o'clock every single day. It is being used by families, by kids, by couples walking their dogs.
More surveillance, more safety in an area that historically that's been its downside, hasn't it?
And it's credit where it's due. That was designed very well. The safety and lighting aspect is definitely something that was taken into consideration when they built this because it's done very well.
That's the sort of amenity change that gentrifies a suburb. Has it made a difference with regards to people choosing property within the realms of that, where it's an activity centre in a way, where people go, I want to live there because of that, or you haven't seen really that yet?
Look, I've got 2 examples where a family was looking at East Vic Park, Bentley, St James, wouldn't consider Queen's Park otherwise, came through, ended up buying a house in Queen's Park that's obviously $500,000 cheaper compared to what they'd have to pay in Vic Park, if not more, but saw how much of a change there's been between the State Football Centre, between the train line upgrades, everything that comes with it. That gave them the confidence to spend a very strong amount of money in the area. And on the other side of that, we've got first home buyers who were looking at apartments in Vic Park or looking at Carlisle Lathlane, now going for $300,000-$400,000 less, or within our budget, we're going to get a lot more money. And look how much better this area is. It's not what they used to think of it as it was.
You mentioned first home buyers. Now, when I think about first home buyers and I connect that with you talking to the median house price hitting mid-800s, I straight away think of the 5% threshold.
Yes.
Tell us a story about that.
I think it's created an artificial price point and an artificial market. So every property that's worth 700, 750 in May last year automatically went up to 850 by the end of the year because we had competition from both investors but first home buyers using the first home buyer scheme to utilise that. So I think there's a lot of reasons why our median's currently sitting at 850 aligned with that change to the government's plan and schedule.
Are you seeing a lot of new product come out of the ground, or is it still not stacking up on a FISO space? So
this is where the council, and for the first time in about 18 years, I'm going to give them a positive plug. This is the city of Canning we're talking about. So there's a area called the Centre Precinct, which is surrounding the train line in and amongst Queen's Park.
Coca Park, all that at Wharf Street?
Yep, so there and on the opposite side on Railway Parade. So all those properties there in this centre zone had a requirement for multi-dwelling, so apartments.
It made it really hard, didn't it? Just like 50 years too early nearly.
Even if you could make it work, you couldn't find a builder who would actually be able to build it for you. So they've actually released now a draft planning policy amendment where you can now build double-storey townhouses in these areas where they wanted apartments.
Just too ambitious, you reckon?
Too much too soon.
Yeah. You only get one chance to build. Once you go medium density, it's very hard to ever think about stacking up, knocking down those townhouses to then build an apartment building. Like that sets things back 100 years, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I understand where they were coming from, and I applaud them for being ambitious about, hey, let's do it once and properly. But it's just awkward that the ambition was in a place like Queen's Park and East Cannington, when really that ambition should have been 10 kilometres closer to the city.
Correct. That should have been in East Perth, Vic Park, maybe Carlisle at a push. Apartments in the suburbs definitely have a place. High density in the suburbs are a whole different discussion. And when we say high density, we're talking 4, 6 to 8 levels.
So you're saying 2-storey walk-ups, no problems?
2 stories are okay. Townhouses, as they are, will be outstanding. Buyers would love them. You can fit a lot more on them. It will do very well. But even 2-storey apartment complexes would be okay. The problem was it was 4, 6 or 8 story requirements.
Just massive capital outlay in a part of Perth that is probably too risky to put those balls on the line.
I think Joondalup did it 26 years ago, created a city centre with apartments and things, and they felt they could replicate that all over Perth. And it worked beautifully in Joondalup's case, don't get me wrong, but I think in the current climate, building costs, there's a whole bunch of variables there that are a little bit different.
You're branching your sales out a little bit from the concentration of Queen's Park train station.
Yep.
Are you seeing a different story across different parts of Perth, or is it fairly similar for you?
Absolutely are. So if you go to areas, let's use East Freo, Adderale, Bicton, Melville, that market hasn't changed very much, if at all.
Is that because it's an owner-occupied area anyway?
So that owner-occupier market that is now, instead of buying an investment property, is now reinvesting in their own property. We're seeing that market actually grow since the start.
Yeah, so there's that wealth gap thing again that Derek was talking about.
Separates.
Is that actually, I hadn't considered this, is that not only does it push investors to new stock, it just pushes would-be investors back into owner-occupied property. That's a light bulb moment for me right now.
Yep. So that's the biggest thing. And now whether that's in East Freo or on the lakes in Balladura for 1.7, 1.8 million, we're seeing owner-occupier interest in both spots and very strong. We're talking multiple offers, pricing 100 to 200,000 over asking. So we're just seeing an adjustment in buyer attitude.
So it's not geographic, it's sector. It's owner-occupied dense suburbs versus investor dense suburbs, and that's probably where you're going to see on a median level, which is crude, but on a median level where the growth is and isn't.
Yep, and I think you'll see areas like Armidale where you've had a huge amount of investment and interstate investment. You won't see that growth. You won't see that same competition.
Do you reckon you see the arse fall out of it, or do you reckon it just goes sideways?
My guess in those particular areas would be about a 5 to 10% adjustment very quickly because of that aspect. We're definitely going to see those returns soften.
Look, these are great insights because I think all of our thought processes as we all talk to each other in the industry are starting to solidify, meld to gaining an understanding of the human condition, the human behaviours coming out of this, right? Because it's easy to, in the first week or so, start to hypothesize about what will happen, but it's actually a lot more complex than that. And a lot of people are driven by risk and other people are driven by reward. I think we've been focusing on the reward side. The risk side actually is one that, I agree with you. I think it will drive people to simply consolidate to the one tax-free investment they've got and just smash that as far as they can, get that mortgage down. That's what happens when people are nervous as well. Absolutely.
And the other side of that is you'll see the key word here is duplex or development type properties for the mum and dads being the 2-lot investments. They will become a lot more, I've already seen that happen, but will become a lot more sought after with the negative gearing changes
because they're creating that product still.
Because they're creating 2 new products, they can then obviously claim the negative gearing across those products. So if you are going to invest, probably see that segment of the market still see very strong interest, potential growth, but your apartments that are leased for 12 months, be prepared to maybe hold those until they're closer to the end of the leases. and then sell them once they're vacant.
Because you want them going to a owner-occupier.
We're limiting our market heavily by only having it open to investors.
Yeah, it's a good point. And we've said this anyway. Generally, I've said this on radio all the time. If you're a landlord and you want to sell your property, sell it vacant. Stage it.
Yep.
Get the tenants' gear out of there and sell it vacant, because 70% of most markets is an owner-occupied market. You're going to be absolutely curbing that 70% right down. And then when you're in a market where those investors aren't there anymore, then there's no one.
It's even worse. Even worse. So we're telling this to a lot of owners, or getting calls from people saying, I want to jump out of the market, or I want to sell my investment. Great, when's the lease end? February next year. March next year. It basically is, I'll talk to you at Christmas type of conversations, because I'm not doing the right thing by you if I'm not opening it up to as many buyers as possible. And in an area like Queen's Park, which is 35% investor market generally, that's a huge amount of buyers that aren't coming to see the property. And I don't want to limit your price by doing that.
So I would have thought there'd be just as many people who have grandfathered properties, established properties, who would now be holding longer because of this, going, well, this is my last one.
And that's the flip side of all of this. A whole concept of this was for equal playing field for first home buyers. It could do the opposite in the long term and actually force people to hold properties, because if they sell that property and go buy another one, they're going to lose all the benefits of holding that property. So then you might see that attitude change.
And there
again.
may be no benefits, but there's a perception that they'll lose benefits.
That's exactly it.
And that's all it needs to be half the time.
Perception is 90% of the truth, according to the media. So the media will spin it as much as they need to create the headlines, and that's where a lot of, I think, the uncertainty in the market is at the moment. I'm having conversations with my vendor about pricing, but they're coming to me. 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, I had to go to them with updates, say, look, I think we need to adjust. The market's not quite there. They're coming to me going, oh, the market's dropping, isn't it? Do we need to adjust? Do we need to drop? No, in most cases we don't. We just
give it
need
another
to,
week or so,
well, and that's the thing. Days on market.
5 days in, they're like, ooh.
Yeah. We go through one weekend of home opens, and it's, oh, it didn't sell on the weekend. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Our average days on market's 21. Just because it's showing as 9 days or was 9 days 3 months ago doesn't mean that's where we're at the moment. We just need to adjust our expectation as agents and educate our vendors on that as well. And then even more so with buyers.
Yeah, that is the strange thing. I've posted this on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago. The headline was, days on market doubles in the last couple of months. And then the next line was, it's now 14 days.
Yep.
Any market other than the last 2 years, 14 days would have been the record low.
You can give me 28 days, I'd be over the moon with it.
Yeah.
So I'm
because we lived through 90.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Queen's Park, we go 2018, 132 days. So I used to do the appraisal. I'd speak to the owners and say, I'm going to be sitting in this house for the next 16 weeks.
I'm not going to get paid until the middle of the year.
And then that's right. Yeah, I'll get paid next year. But the point of that is there's a real adjustment happening, and the perception and expectations are very different to what the reality is. So we need to control that. That's our job, to go to the buyers. Look, the property is going to be open 2 or 3 times, or 3 or 4 times, and then we're going to present the offers. So
you're trying to take the control back a little bit.
But they have to understand that properties don't sell after the first weekend. They think there's something wrong with it. That's not how it works, unfortunately. Well, it has worked in the last 6 months or 12 months, but realistically, in a normal market, we are at 22 days, 23 days on market.
So you're going end-date sales?
End-date sales are strong. That gives a sort of a fair time frame, a good balance of feedback.
But puts the power in your hands.
And then takes control back for the vendors. It gives the vendors the knowledge that, hey, it didn't sell the first weekend, but that's okay. We've got 2 more weekends to go.
That's part of the plan.
It's part of the plan.
Yeah, look, it definitely talks to updating dynamics of the market. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just the market dynamics are changing in multiple directions across Perth right now, and that just means it's patchy. You're going to have properties that's still selling well above what people ask for, because they're that golden goose in the suburb that people have been waiting for and are now focused on because of the changes in the tax system. And then you're going to have properties that just dog boxes that actually would have sold for an enormously unexpected price a few months ago that now are probably going the other way very quickly.
Yes.
And you got to hope that you don't have that stock.
That's exactly it. And if you do have that stock, work on it. Do some work. You have to get it painted, get it carpeted, get it styled. You're going to have to spend a bit of money to get that top price. The top price can still be achieved, don't get me wrong. We haven't seen the bottom drop out yet, but we can no longer throw on these rented properties where the tenants are controlling the sale and expect to achieve that top price.
What does the median house price look like in Queen's Park in 12 months' time?
If we can hover around the 850 mark, even 30, I'd be very happy.
So you're suggesting it's sideways, possibly a little bit of softening in your suburb over the next 12 months?
I think that's what we're going to see across the board.
You're the first agent to say that on this podcast, mate.
I'm going to be honest as possible.
Before you go, I always like to ask this one. What's your favourite street in Queen's Park?
Favourite street in Queen's Park would have to be Retchford Way.
Why?
Located in a area called the Quattro Estate, which is part of the suburb that used to be one of the worst parts. I mentioned it last time. You've got a park at one end, you've got a bus stop at the other, brilliant family homes. Everyone's very much like-minded in terms of that community feel within this little estate. And it's definitely a sought-after pocket of the area.
So that's the sort of place where you'd expect to see growth?
Continued growth. We've seen amazing growth. A lot of these families that bought here might have paid $500,000 land and house 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. They're now at 1.1, 1.2 million. So these are the investors that are no longer going to go invest. They're going to sell their property for 1.1 and then go buy something else for 1.6, and that will be their investment moving forward.
Their family home.
Their family home. CGT free.
Tom, the agency, thanks so much for coming in, mate.
Thank you.
Very insightful, very unique insights for today's, and I think everyone needs to listen, I hope, right until the end of this one, because it's been gold all the way. Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Perth Property Show. If you've only just joined the conversation, you can catch up by heading over to our website, perthpropertyshow.com.au, subscribing to the podcast, or joining our Facebook page. Don't forget to tune in next Monday at 7 a.m. for more expert insights, local analysis, and suburb spotlights. Happy hunting!